in studio as we continue to talk about elections that are going on here in Lubbock and regionally as well. We have Steve Massengale, candidate for Lubbock City Council in District 4. Welcome back.
Chad, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back in studio. How has the campaign gone since you've been in studio last time?
It's been great. The response has been great. We work every day, and we feel extremely good. You know, we're down under the 30-day mark, 30 days as of yesterday till Election Day, so we're ready. Yeah,
it's one that I think may sneak up on some people out there, as a lot of folks are still paying attention to what's going on nationally. Maybe a little bit of the District 19, but I think that's getting drowned out.
Yeah.
But for Lubbock City Council, I think that means that it makes your job a little bit tougher, all candidates a little bit tougher, because that means you got to get out and meet as many people as possible. I assume that's been a large part of the strategy. When you talk to folks in that district, what are their main concerns that they bring up to you?
Well, I don't go to any group or visit with anybody any day that they want to talk about city debt. You know, the debt is an issue. It's widely publicized. We've obviously piled on to the point we're at $1.1 billion, and they're really excited about having people with good business sense on the council we've got to come up with a plan to reduce that debt.
You know, I think that there are some out there who would say we've had business people on the city council. We're still in debt. So
it's a valid point.
So how are you different?
I think you just look at my track record. I mean, same situation with the school district. You've got a government that, government held unaccountable grows. Well, that's the way I feel about government. And so, when I served on the school board, we had many examples of inefficiencies, even within government, that we were able to improve and save millions of dollars, payroll costs and operational costs. And I think you apply the same principles to City Hall. So, after May 7th, we'll get right in there and get after that. But you've got to have people that understand, I think people that have long-term experience with business like I have, being a small business owner for 30 years, you go in and you recognize things that other people would not recognize. And I think I think it requires tough decisions in some cases, but I do think we can get to the point where we're stop paying for routine things like street maintenance or computers or vehicles with the credit card. We don't need to be taking on additional debt to pay for those things. Now, we may have to wait. We may not get everything we want. There may be times where we might require something and we're not going to be able to afford it for a while till we build up some cash reserves so we can address some of those things. But those are the type of things that I will do once elected to city council.
I talked to a lot of people who actually live in your district, in District 4. And also a lot of folks who are looking at this race, and they want to know. They want someone who's more conservative. They want a conservative in that seat. For many of them, when they look at the seat, they go, "I don't know who to vote for. I don't know who the most conservative is. I don't know the real differences between Steve Massengale and Jim Gerald." So, what are the real differences in your mind between you and your opponent?
Well, first of all, I think we take a different view on taxes. Obviously, my opponent raised taxes last September. I served on the school board for 8 years and had the ability to impact taxes, and I never raised taxes. Again, I'm going to look for efficiencies. I'm going to look for smaller government, and I think I'm that conservative candidate that they're looking for.
Visiting with Steve Massengale, candidate for Lubbock City Council. This was a topic that was brought up in the mayoral forum earlier. I think it was this week. And that's the issue of the auditorium and the Coliseum and what the future should be for the auditorium and the Coliseum. If it's going to be given back or handed over to Texas Tech, it has to be a vote of the people.
Yes.
In order for that to happen. What is your opinion on that? Should there be a vote, or should there be more money put into the Coliseum and auditorium?
I have a real hard time putting any more money into that facility, Chad. I think we've got some opportunities in our community. We've got some private funded projects that are obviously coming out of the ground right now. I heard earlier y'all were reporting on LIPA that I think can handle and accommodate some of those events that were in that facility. So There is a point, and we dealt with this when we were on the school board, that it is not wise to put taxpayer money into an aging facility. So I'm going to be hard-pressed to promote that one.
Visiting with Steve Massengale, we had your opponent on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we brought up the issue of the Omni building.
Mm-hmm.
And before you have said the Omni building, as of right now, doesn't look like a smart investment, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it's been handled correctly. And, I don't think it's ever a good move to enter into a public project and not know how much it's going to cost. I don't believe that's transparent government. So that's the situation. I don't think anyone can tell us how much that's going to cost. So, yes, I have my concerns with that project.
He brought up the building AIVs
Mm-hmm.
when you were on the school board. Mm-hmm. And said, hey, the school board paid 2.5 times the value of AIVs. And this is what you said in the AJ interview at the time. You talked about it being the front door to the district's administration, and you said, quote, the taxpayers own the whole block except for that. To protect the community investment in real estate, we need to purchase that building. Looking back on it, was that a smart investment for LISD to make? And in the future, if you're elected, let's say the Omni building goes up and there's an ugly-looking building right next door to the Omni building, and the city wants to buy that, how would your vote change?
Well, I do. I still think the AIV's purchase was wise. And, at the time we were the gentleman that owned the building, he knew he was going to move, and he had made several attempts to make deals with past administrations at the school district. They couldn't, for whatever reason, they couldn't make a deal, but we were getting word that people were looking at that, entities were looking at that building that were really not conducive to be next to the front door of the school district, like a head shop, someone might sell hydroponics, possibly tattoo parlors. And at the time, we just felt like since the taxpayers own the entire block, that we needed to make a decision and go ahead and control that piece of property. So I think it's a real stretch to compare that to the purchasing of the Omni building. Where the Omni building is a project that is going to approach, we don't know what it's going to cost. I think even I think I've heard our mayor say it could be $90 to $100 million. There are projects that when they approach that size, in my opinion, that I think you should include voter opinion on it. And so, to compare the two, I don't think that's fair. Do I think AIV's was a good purchase? Yes.
How has it benefited LISD? Because, were people coming into LISD and going, oh, man, I'd love to send my students here, but you got an ugly building next door. I guess for folks out there who want, when taxpayer money is spent, they want it, justify that money.
Sure.
And paying, again, 2.5 times, and that was something that your opponent criticized, saying 2.5 times the value. Even in the article, that's a criticism there.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure. I guess I'm not sure where the 2.5 times the value came in. But so, one thing I felt strongly about on the school board is regardless of what we did, safety was paramount. At the end of the day, if we didn't do anything else, we had to guarantee safety. And so because of the patrons, I guess you could call it, that were attracted to that building and that could be attracted to that kind of business, safety was a concern. It's no different than when we made a decision to install electronic locks and surveillance cameras all over our campuses, put in additional fences, and even modify some of the campuses to make sure that we had control entrances. Safety's paramount, especially in the school business. And so, yes, it is a safer situation for the central office when parents are down there conducting business for their students' education.
So let me ask you this. Let's say Omni building happens and nothing changes, because you do have some members of the city council who say, hey, it's too late. This ship has sailed.
Right.
We're building this thing. So
Understood.
Let's say it happens, and let's say there is, you brought up tattoo shop, or a business that the city council does not deem good enough to be next door. Where do you draw the line of buying that property with taxpayer money and saying, okay, we don't want that next door to us?
I think it's different. I draw the line at student safety. Again, the jobs are not exactly the same. So, downtown, if it falls within the plan that we've laid out as a community for planning and zoning, then so be it. That's not something I'm going to step in front of. On the school board, your parents expect you to keep kids safe, and so I think it's a different situation.
All right. Steve Massengale, when we come back, we've got a lot more to get into, including annexation, tax issues, much more to talk about, including your phone calls if you have a question for Steve Massengale, candidate for District 4, Lubbock City Council. And he's got T-shirts too, folks. I saw that on Facebook. So if you're interested, you can call Steve up and get a T-shirt.
We'll drop them off here at the studio.
There you go. We'll be right back. We're back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. Steve Massengale in studio. We've talked about downtown Lubbock, and you're running for District 4, Lubbock City Council. Obviously, District 4 is an area of town where a lot of people are concentrating on. Are there other areas of the city of Lubbock that need to be focused on, just like 34th Street was focused on? You have other parts of the city that some feel are ignored. What do you think about that? Are there other parts of the city that need to be have a little focus?
Top of mind for me is the southern border of my district, and that is 1585. I sit on Planning and Zoning Commission. Matter of fact, we had a meeting last night, and if you don't travel 1585, it's hard for you to know, but there's a tremendous amount of activity and a tremendous amount of speculative moves right now by developers. And one thing we've done, and many past councils have not addressed this, and the new council has to address the comprehensive land use plan. We're working on a plan that's last updated by council, Chad, in 1984. Now, what plan do you know is any good? And, and so we've got to get be ahead of planning and zoning in our city. And so, yes, that area, and it just happens to be in my district, we've got to pay close attention to. And I know what this segues into. Starts with an A, annexation. And I do think, I believe growth is important. I believe growth is important for our community and for our businesses to grow. It helps us build a robust economy. We're going to have to annex. Annexation is necessary. How we approach it, I probably would approach it differently than how it's been approached. But,
how so?
Well, one thing I'm concerned about is we as a council, we talk about annexation, and then what we do is we punt it to a committee, which not everything needs to be punted to a committee. The voters elect people to make they expect them to make some tough decisions.
Right.
And then it concerns me, we let a committee work, then we let them make them a recommendation, and then we re-review the recommendation. So I think I would handle that differently. I do not want to spend a committee of taxpayers' times and not accept their recommendation. I want to give them the direction and the resources they need so that if I'm going to charge them with that, we're going to listen to them. And then the other thing is when we do make decisions to annex, we need to follow through with our commitments. We do need to deliver services, and I don't know that we've done that in all situations. And, put yourself in the shoes of those being annexed. No one wants to be annexed. It sounds like you're being taken over, but there's ways, just like any negotiated process, to say, you know what, Chad, I think this is the best thing. I know you're not in the city, but here's what we're going to do for you because we want you to be a taxpayer. We understand we're about to impact your taxes. Let's form a plan so this doesn't impact you instantly, but we want to deliver you the services, and we believe you'll find value in those services once we deliver them.
Let me ask you this, and this has been a criticism, I think, from those who criticize the constant annexation, and a lot of people see it that way, especially those who are opposed to annexation. They see it as Lubbock consistently annexing land out there. Do you fall into a trap, or does the city fall into a trap of annexing so much that we just don't have the services right now to be able to serve those areas, and that hurting the budget in a way, and hurting services all over the city? Yeah,
no doubt. We need a better plan. I think it starts with that comprehensive land use plan. We know what's out there. There's no surprises. There's no surprises outside our city limits right now. You and I aren't developers, and we can probably sit down and probably predict where the city's going to grow.
Right.
So I think it's just all about having a good plan. I mean, I don't think these things should sneak up. I don't think that, people should be surprised about annexation. I think it's all about sitting down. I think it starts with that comprehensive land use plan, and let's look at it. And I think we need to look forward 20 years. 30 years. And so everybody's on the same page about we know where we're going to grow. We know where developers want to invest their private dollars. And that's the other thing is the city needs to, they can set the rules and develop so that we protect property values. But the city has to create the environment for private money to be invested, and then they need to get out of the way. And I think that applies everywhere in our city, including downtown.
We just had a drive-by caller, and they went back to the A. Ivy's building.
Okay.
And I think this is a good question. Why do you not think that the A. Ivy's building purchase, that decision should not have been given to the voters?
Because I think because of the value of the project. And again, that's why I was saying that when Citizens Tower has approached the price tag that it has, coupled with the LPD. I mean, if you're approaching $100 million,
right?
I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money. And I think it's a lot of money to the budget of the city government, and it's a lot of money to the taxpayers.
So there's a line as far as how much it's going to cost.
Again, I go back to people elect people to make tough decisions, but at some point you have to include the voters.
Right.
And I think, again, that is a function of transparent government.
When you look at, let's say, the Omni building or any other purchase that the city could make, is there a figure just off the top of your head that you say, okay, that's a dollar amount, whether it's $10 million, $20 million, $5 million, whatever it may be, that you say that's something that the voters need to decide?
I think you use good judgment. To me, $100 million seems like a red, as you approach that, you need to get voter input. But here's really what has to happen, Chad, is if we as an elected body decide that we need to make a purchase for the benefit of the taxpayers, there is a process to go through to say, okay, look, we can do all of our feasibility, and that I'd be willing to spend money on that. And this is, we're going to go and do our preliminary architectural and engineering study. And then we're going to go to the taxpayer and we're going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, we believe we have this need for our government. Mm-hmm. We have determined it's going to cost X, not X plus, not around, not about. It's going to cost X. And we want to know if you support us in this decision, do you want us to spend your tax dollars on this project? Because what it will do for us is X, Y, and Z. Then you step back and see if that is the will of the people. And if it's not, then we go another direction.
Steve Massengale, candidate for District 4 Lubbock City Council. Steve, where can people find out more information about you and get in touch with you?
Absolutely, Chad. You can go to steveforlubbock.com online. That's FOR for Lubbock. You can look for Steve Massengale for City Council on Facebook and on Twitter. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We're going to get you back in studio again quickly because this District 4 race, I know a lot of people are paying attention to it. So we'll get you back in studio pretty soon, okay?
Sounds great.